know is what's your role at the company? What do you do? We want to know what kind of group we have here today. Are you an SDR? Are you an AE? Or do you have a managing role? Are you managing a team maybe that's making calls? So we're happy to have all of you here. Awesome.
Wow, so many locations. We've got from Texas to Wales. So that's a nice difference there. Very cool.
Yeah. That's actually my favorite part of that's something I've posted on my LinkedIn quite a fean times, is that what I love about a sales job is that it's like, I used to study international economics in college, and I was always excited about the multicultural aspect of that job. And now I get to do this in sales. And when I speak to people from all over the place, that's my favorite part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's super fun. Do you do it in many languages as well, Alex? Do you sell in different languages?
Yeah, I should be ashamed for that. I used to start learning like French and German, and I did start learning Spanish a few years ago, but I kind of gave up. I was quite good at it in the beginning, but then I don't know, priorities changed and I didn't get to use it as much. But you speak Spanish though, right? You're fluent?
Yeah, I don't think I could sell in it. To be honest, it's Spanish I've learned in the streets of Spain, not in a professional environment. So I've never sold in Spanish, but yeah, I can speak it. Yeah.
But it still can be a good sort of icebreaker on any call that you have. If you can start it in Spanish, they can always understand it. You have to switch to English as you go, right?
Yeah, exactly. I always like to try at least say hello, how are you in each language. Makes sense.
That's something that I'm actually intending to do. Yeah, I usually have my calls from my home office, and in the background, I have my bookcase, and I actually have an Eiffel Tower on it. And last week, I had a call with a team from France, and they were like, "Oh, we can see your Eiffel Tower." I'm like, I should do this every time. I should put it up front, maybe. Yeah, more like that. So I got some compliments on it. So definitely, I think kind of having an icebreaker in a language or having some kind of cultural thing to open the calls is always good, whether that's a demo call or even maybe a cold call, right? So that can work there as well.
Yeah, exactly. Although interestingly, I know I've known Italian salespeople to call Italy in English just to get through because they sound a bit different. So it's you can play with language a lot.
Sure. Does that give them the better connect rates if they open the call in English?
Better to get through the gatekeeper sometimes. So if the gatekeeper can't speak English and you phone in and speak in English, they go, okay, put you through. I've seen it happen.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's something to remember, guys. Make notes. Cool experience. Yeah.
Only Italians try it though. And I think my ex-colleagues will know who I'm speaking about there. So.
Yeah. Awesome. I think we do have quite a few SDRs, a few team managers. Let me see. A full sales cycle. I feel for you guys. I'm actually just an AE, and like for me, I can't imagine kind of going back to doing the whole thing, to doing the prospect and sign and then giving the demos. So yeah, that's a lot of respect from me to you guys. Awesome. So I think it's a good time to start.
I think so. I think we're getting on to 5 minutes now, 5 minutes past. I can't see all of the participants there, but I can see the chat going. So yeah. So guys, thank you all who've arrived already to webinar. I'm sure there's a few people dripping in. So my name is Luke Davis. I'm the SDR manager at CloudTalk. What CloudTalk do, I won't pitch you too much, but we're a cloud-based phone system, a startup that's we're going across the world there, and we integrate with a lot of the platforms such as Salesforce, Reply as well. I think we're working on Gong, and many others. And I want to thank Reply for inviting me, and Alex, thanks for getting me on here today.
Cool. Yeah. Hi, my name is Alex. I'm with Reply.io. Right now, I'm an account executive that's handling the EMEA region. And for those of you who don't know, Reply is a multi-channel sales engagement platform. So we are the solution for the sales and SDR teams when you're running your outreach and you want to stay personalized and do that via multiple channels to increase your engagement rates.
Cool. Thanks, Alex. I think it'll be good to start before we go into the agenda. Let's have a little poll. It'll be very interesting because cold calling isn't the most popular for everybody, but it'd be interesting to know what everybody's favorite outreach channel is, and then what they think is the most effective outreach. Take 30 seconds, so quickly fill it in. It'll be interesting to see what the results are, and then we can go into it.
I can see it, but I can't vote, but I'll tell you mine after we get everybody's results.
What's your favorite outreach channel, Alex?
Definitely not phone. If we are talking about the favorite one, I like personalized videos, or that would be email or social. Yeah, LinkedIn.
Okay. Well, mine's definitely phone, and it's definitely the most effective. So I stand strong there, but I don't think the results will show in my favor.
Let's see. But just give everyone just, I think, maybe another minute to click on their choice, and then we'll look at the results. Okay, I think it's gone now. But if we're talking about my team, for my SDR team, the most effective would be email, but the phone is second best. Okay, let's see what results we have.
Email being the favorite. Okay.
I could predict that, no?
Well, no, I thought social media would be, and it's apparently one of the least favorite. Okay. And
I think email seems like the least intrusive. That's why it can be the most favored, because it's still part of our nature where we don't want to bother people too much. So email seems like to give people space whether they want to reply or not. Yeah.
I see something interesting though. LinkedIn is not in social, so I always count LinkedIn as social media. But yeah, it's third. It's pretty close up there. And phone is most effective. Good. At least I got 1 out of 2 of the people. That's great. Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, guys, for voting. So let's crack on to it now, Alex.
Yeah, if phone is most effective, then let's even make it more effective, right? With what experience we have to share with you guys.
I hope there's at least a couple of tips.
Yeah.
So the agenda, as many of you have seen on the invite, has 4 main topics today. I think there's one of the topics there which you're going to get a few tips from, but also the first part is very much about the mentality about cold calls and why they're so difficult rather than the how. And you can take whatever insight from there. The optimization of cold calls as well for better results once you have that mentality and you like to go for it. And then, yeah, we're going to give you a checklist of what we thought were the most important points when calling. Fourthly, as well, how other touch points can make it easier to pick up the phone, which looking at what Reply do, it's really cool. You'll see a bit later. But basically how to make those cold calls warm calls, which is much nicer to do. It's much nicer to pick up the phone when that happens. So why are cold calls so difficult? A lot of people hate them, right? So these are my takes going forward on this. The fear of rejection. I think this is definitely, I hated it when I first started cold calling 12 years ago in recruitment. I was scared of being told no all of the time. I took it personally. And I think this is something quite natural. I think, you could even, people hate rejection when you're in the dating scene as well. And just the same as when you're trying to have a conversation with someone to get a business relationship. I think fear of rejection is quite a serious thing. And the reality is you really shouldn't care. It's easy to say, but you just shouldn't care about the call. You should pick up it and just go for it, not care too much. Tying in very closely, the reluctance to bother people. So we're all taught from a young age, do not interrupt people, don't talk to strangers, okay? And I think it really sticks with people, especially as it's to do with being educated effectively in most of the world that you don't want to bother people. The thing is with this, if everybody stuck by that in business, nobody would communicate and nothing would happen. So it's very it's one of the main reasons, but I think one of the easiest things to get over once you look at the bigger picture. Alex, I had a moment, right? So I was quite a lazy SDR a few years ago. I didn't like to email. I thought calling was the best way to get as much activity into as many leads. I regularly on this tool had two cadences going. The one the company wanted me to do, and my calling cadence, which was completely different. A lot of times I would phone the same person twice in a day. When they would say no in the morning, like connect, and then forget, phone them later on. So I wasn't the best SDR, I have to be honest. But I have to say something. That second call was always better than the first no. I've even said like, well, have you changed your mind since this morning? And it never turned out that negative. So yeah, a little bit weird anecdote there. Alex,
yeah, can I jump in?
Do you feel that reluctance?
Yeah, that would be mine, because we always bring our personality to our work, and in sales it can hurt you if you're like me, when in real life you're really kind of conscious about your own boundaries and somebody else's boundaries, and then calling someone out of the blue when they're not expecting you can really stop you. If you don't want to cross this boundary, you don't want to bother them. So it is like the process appears here. This is where you have to really change how you perceive the calls, that you're not really bothering people, but you are offering them the value. So that's another thing that we will kind of get to later on, that you will need to work on, so that you're actually not bothering people, but helping them with your phone calls. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it links in very well to the third point, right? The lack of self-esteem. It could be also about the product on this point, as well as your own ability. If you've been rejected enough times, you might take it as, I'm not very good at cold calling. Yeah, that's something you can just work on. It's lack of self-esteem, picking up that phone. It's a conversation. It's human. If you look at it as a conversation, and not attach it to a certain thing, the result or whatever you need from the call or whatever you've been told that you have to say, it should be fine. With product knowledge, confidence, and basically volume, you kind of lose that. You gain that self-esteem. The more you do, the better you get.
Yeah, and I know it's the call that you have to pick up after the one when you got hung up on, or somebody had a bad day and they kind of took it out on you. That next call is the most difficult to make, but that one is the call that actually makes the difference. There are so many stories out there when after being, like yelled at, you kind of put it together, make the next call, and that's the call that gets you the meeting booked that you are looking to do.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen SDRs phone somebody and get rejected, and later on say thank you for the persistence. Now it's time, but the first interactions weren't very positive. Just happens later. It's just part of a process. So, what I think the largest reason is with the mentality why people don't want to do it is outcome attachment. It's expecting every effort or activity or any call to come out with something, whether that be a meeting, whether that be a definitive next step, so you can put it in your CRM. The thing is, that makes it more painful when you do fail. And the reality is you have to detach yourself from that individual activity, because it's just part of the process. I've seen reps myself really beat themselves up, but couldn't pick up the call because they were so attached to doing well at the job. So there was no point to say, you should call more, because they just beat themselves up and get deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole of not being able to pick up the phone. Funnily enough, one guy, I printed off a Zen Buddhist PDF, gave it to him and said, you read that before you even pick up that phone. I want you to think like a Zen Buddhist. And it kind of worked. He laughed and then realized how silly everything was and picked up the phone. There's no failure to be had. It doesn't need to be a meeting. You're starting a conversation. You can get anything from it. And these days, I think people like getting called. I don't know if you like getting called, Alex. I know you said it wasn't your favorite thing for outreach, but in COVID times?
I don't necessarily like getting called, but since I started working in sales, I like it because I can analyze it. I see when somebody is bad at it, then I just, I get upset. When somebody is good, I like to take it as an example. Okay, what do? I think everyone in sales. It's actually hard to, it's difficult for me to see when people in sales are like reluctant to taking cold calls, because they should be the ones actually like learning from them and be kind of curious about them, how others do it. So yeah. And they can be also more demanding because they know how it works, right? Yeah. Part
Yeah,
of the
exactly. I think also, most salespeople respect it as well. So if you're speaking to someone who's quite senior in any business, they've always done a part of sales. So even if the outcome's not there, you might gain a bit of respect, just the fact that you did it, especially as people are calling less and less. It's definitely a method of doing it, which I think is probably going to come back around again.
Do you get many calls actually these days?
Surprisingly, no. My phone is on whatever data mining things there are, like Lusha. I've seen it come up when I didn't know I put my details in. I get maybe 15 to 20 emails a day from SDRs, and maybe one of them will call. And
favorite channel, right? Favorite channel. There you go.
Yeah. So sorry for any SDRs who are viewing this today, and I've ignored your email, but maybe the call will work. Yeah, it's one. I really don't get them. Do you?
No, not really. I'm just an AE, so there's not really much point in targeting me. I think like C-levels and managers like yourself usually get them. I get just a few, but no.
Very soon you will, I'm sure. So yeah, outcome attachment, detach yourself, be zen. That's going to help you with mentality. So once you have this mentality, once you know you're comfortable picking up the phone, you've read your Zen Buddhism, your manager said keep phoning, it doesn't matter about the outcome, and you realize you're part of a process, you need to optimize those calls when you do them. How do we do that? Prioritize. Prioritization is the key when you're doing any activity in sales, no matter whatever outreach. You need to call people that are going to respond. Now, this might seem weird because the way I've worded it here is call people prospects that have responded. But because they've responded once, the likelihood is they do again. And I've seen the data to prove this. I do something with teams where if an SDR has a pipeline and a lead is in new, this is least priority. We don't know what's going to happen, even if they answer, even if the data is correct. Then it goes into approached. This is, you sent an email and you made a call, but you haven't got through. Then there's the working accounts that have responded before the meeting scheduled. Now, for results wise, meeting scheduled is always going to be top. You're going to be, if they've said yes to a meeting, you'd hope that 95 to 100% of those happen. But the ones who respond, they're likely to respond again. The number works and you're already entered into a dialogue. So even if they've said no, you can use that to get through. They're letting you talk to them and intrigue them more. If they've said no, you can say, why not? Whatever, you can get back hold of them. The second part is they make sure these leads that you have in your list, they fit your ICP, your ideal customer profile. The reason is if you don't do this, then you may get some results, you may get some outside and just keep adding these leads from whatever company. But you may never be able to sell to them, so it doesn't matter too much. If they fit your ICP, even if it's a definite no, at least it's worth keeping in a pipeline for later and finding out when it is a good time. So I think that should always be in the back of your mind for all of these no's. If you've got through and it's a good count, just keep it.
Mm-hmm. Before we go into next one, I just also wanted to throw in that it's an awesome point to call back. Yeah, the ones who already reply to you, even that's a no, or the ones who already come to you, and that would apply to your full sales cycle. It works just as well when you're just prospecting, right? Let's say you're an outbound SDR. a lead, so you already kind of cleaned your list, right? You already have only your ICPs on this list and somebody replies. I would recommend, if you have that phone number in place, kind of before replying them via email, scheduling the call, just call them first. This is a good opportunity to establish that first connection, qualify them once again, right? Because maybe they're not necessarily your ICP at this particular moment. Maybe there is no need. So you schedule a meeting with them right away and it will end up just a waste of time for the AE. So the more information you can get out of them, and usually the call is the best way to do that. So I would use the phone on the prospecting side, but also as your leads kind of go through your pipeline, whether that's to get an update from them, or even if they kind of get back to you saying that, okay, we're not gonna purchase your solution. Also call them first, get that reason why. They can be valuable feedback for your product, right? For something to be changed for the product team, I mean, yeah. Or it can be a timeline thing that you will touch base with them in the few months. So any information that you'll get from them will be valuable for the future.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. All of this information is helping the company and yourself later on. So definitely. Yeah, the third point is the measurement. Measure yourself. One thing I think is a very good first step people make in sales, especially, is being able to block out their time. I think what makes people next level is measuring what they can do in that time. So if you know you can make 12 connected calls in an hour, you can predict your results better on certain metrics. So if you know that generally I can call 30 leads that I found and have this, and make 4 connected calls, and 50% of the calls I make become a meeting, you can measure that, see how you improve, and predict your results. Definitely. I don't know if you do that yourself, Alex, and or the team there at Reply.
For sure, we keep track of how many calls we make, how many of them get answered, and also like most of the solutions right now, they do provide you with the data when those calls are being mostly answered. So you can also predict what would be the hours that you actually have to block off in your calendar to target your leads. I think another thing when we're talking about prioritization is knowing who you target. Your ICP, right? Is that a C-level? Is that somebody lower? What are the times that they're most likely to answer? When are they in meetings? Maybe there are some cultural things to consider, right? Do you have any examples, Luke, regarding when are certain countries best approached and which aren't?
There's definitely some outliers. So I think a lot of Central Europe, I haven't seen too many big differences of when you can call. I think they don't get called enough, and that's that. But the Nordics, for example, they work really early. Guys in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was living in Norway before, and we started like 6, 7 a.m. would finish around 2. You have to call these guys in the morning. The Southern European countries, depending on the size of the company, but if it's slightly more traditional, I live in Spain, a lot of people here take a 1.5 hour lunch outside. They don't stay in the office. So you're not going to get them at that time. You might get them later in the afternoon when, they just before the siesta, they might want to take. I'm kidding. Nobody does that anymore. But in the UK, I know a lot of the culture is to take a half an hour break at your desk with a sandwich. So you can actually get these people in the UK at their desk. So I've seen some outliers. I think I don't have the exact data on that, but this is what I've seen over the years that people like to call at certain times. I know there's a guy in my team from Greece, and he says the best time is to get them super early in the morning. Right now, I think they have a heat wave. It's 45 degrees, and they don't work in the middle of the day. They work morning or super late, just for that reason. So yeah, there are some outliers for sure. Yeah, and of course the time differences. Yeah, with CloudTalk, for example, on the dialer, as soon as you put in any of the numbers, it comes up with that time zone. So it makes it easier to know when to call these guys. I can show a bit later if we have time on at the end there. So the checklist. So you know how to prioritize, you have the mentality. What else do we need? We need to make sure your prospects have the correct info on the CRM. The most boring thing for a rep is doing admin. One of the most important things for a rep is doing the admin and putting the stuff in the CRM. My sales op colleague will probably love me for this comment, but it's true. Later on, when you want to phone these guys again, you want to see the data, the mobile phone number, the status of what they said, whatever sales methodology you have. If you got through, I don't know, maybe it's banned, and you didn't have budget at that time, it's really useful later on down the line, even if it isn't the nicest part of it. But it's important when you're calling to have that. A clear plan on how you're going to open a call. I think most reps, when they start, could do with a call script, especially when you're lacking a bit of product confidence and knowledge. But just in general, everybody should have a clear plan on how you're going to open a call, what you're going to say, and an idea of the outcome, but not too attached to it. I'm being hypocritical now, but at least have the perfect plan in your head. Personally, I used to go old school. I used to have my favorite 10 leads a day, and each one I'd quickly know that, okay, the number works. They do this. They work for Aston Martin. They have an interest in cars, and I know exactly what they would probably be interested in talking about, and go through a list of 10 each time. But I had it very, very clear with specifically 10 people a day. It definitely helped me.
We actually have a question here in chat, because I think it would be the good time to kind of go over this. Like, how do you personalize if you're not able to gather any data on pain points?
That's a very good question.
Specific, right? If you don't have so much specific insight on this particular person, how do we personalize?
That's a good question. First of all, we can't assume they have a pain point when you call someone. They really may not have a pain point for what your solution is offering, or may have your solution already. So for the pain points, it really depends what you're selling there. You can personalize by knowing the bigger picture of the company, trying to get to understand the KPIs of what that person would want. So if you're calling an e-commerce director, these guys have KPIs, and maybe you see on the annual report that they're failing a little bit, or there's a major growth plan to enter a certain market. That's pretty good personalization without knowing specific pain points. Is sort of the business acumen that you can get quite quickly online.
Yeah, I think also, like, whenever you're targeting a list of leads, right, you always have these verticals, how you choose them, right? Because the best idea is always not to choose them out of the blue, but have an idea whether they're in the specific industry, or I don't know, they have a specific solution that would be aligned best with your solution. So there always has to be a reason behind why you're actually outreaching them. Otherwise, you're just bothering them. I would say that that's just maybe me. Yeah.
Right. The personalization of the way you're calling and your voice is way better than a templated email, in my opinion. I think just the tonality of the way you're calling people, that's the personalization right there. You're getting that conversation. You can open these things and open the pain points. You don't need to have everything set before. It's one of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry if I've missed lots of questions. Actually, I haven't been looking. I have my.
Okay, I'm keeping an eye.
Now.
Some of them we'll get back to. It's okay.
Cool. Yeah. So, preparing to have a conversation with that person. Okay. Look at the LinkedIn. I think it ties into the question asked about personalization. Go on a LinkedIn, see what they do. They may have enough information that they you can just start a conversation where, oh, by the way, I see you won an award. You were celebrating on LinkedIn. Fantastic. Whatever. For me personally, I look at LinkedIn just because I want to see the photo of who I'm going to call to put a face to it, and imagine how they're going to be, which is a little bit strange. It's been a few years, but maybe I'm the only one who's doing that. Alex, do you do that, or?
I did that a few times. I always, like, before, when I was making my inbound calls, so they're not completely cold, right? Sort of warm calls, but still feel like cold quite often. I would open up everything that I have, like their trial activity, their LinkedIn profile, to see what, so that I would prepare. And sometimes the LinkedIn picture might even intimidate me, because what, I'm a newbie SDR and they're like this, I don't know, CEO of a huge company. So it might work, do the opposite trick on me. But also what I wanted to say, and it does relate to one of the questions that we have here. So it is good to do research. It's good to be prepared. But I think in the beginning, just don't overthink it, because you might spend, I don't know, 10 minutes preparing, going through all of the files, and then you dial that phone, that call, and then guess what? They don't pick up. So yeah, you spend all of this time in vain, just kind of researching, preparing. I think in the beginning it's good, but then as you go, it will be also more automatic for you. You will already have a script in place. You will know which things to talk about. So you just check out for the main points that you want to kind of throw at them as an opener to warm them up in an additional way, but kind of don't waste too much time on research, because most of the calls, they don't get answered, right? So just a waste of time there. And also another question that I saw that I wanted to ask you, look, regarding the openers, do you have any openers that worked for you when you were making calls a lot?
Personally, I think tone matters a lot more. I don't believe in, some sorry, can I have, and the fashion change on LinkedIn, there's a lot of influencers I see, and some of the ideas look really cool. Some of them then I think get overused and it becomes there. I think just be simple, slow, and ready to listen very quickly. So say who you are. I'm calling from a company. Pause. Give them time, and let them realize that they're in a conversation. The worst thing you can do is race into a pitch or anything like that. That'll be my advice there.
Yeah, I think that's the key point regarding sales. That pause can really do the trick for you. If you're kind of rushing to throwing your information at them, give that pause a chance, and they actually might start talking, because the pause makes everybody uncomfortable. That's the first reason that we as salespeople start talking, but for them, that's also uncomfortable. So there is a chance you'll get them to say something that can allow you to keep the conversation going.
It makes it more comfortable, I think. The last thing they want to do is be rushed into a pitch and know that they want to be in a sales process. And this person, if there's a solid conversation, you need to do that. And it's always that 1 second more than you think.
Yeah.
Do you have any openers, Alex, that you like to use?
I think what our SDR team does is they always they call, they state themselves, and then they give a reason why they're calling. So they would say, because my team, we do use calling heavily in our inbound sequences. And we would say, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm calling in regards to your trial. And you give them, once again, this 2 seconds to process the information, and it does work well. They're like, oh yeah, the trial, right? So they start talking, or they already give you like, yeah, I'm not interested. But that pause, it does help a lot. Yeah.
Nice. Time is appropriate. We covered that already. Yeah. Overlooked is very simple tip there, but there's nothing worse than leaving your American calls if you work to cross-border territories and things like that, and realize, oh, I was meant to phone that guy in the cadence, but now it's 4 a.m. for him. Important things, right? Don't have any distractions that can delay your call. Links into blocking the calendar, but especially remote these days. I don't know about you, Alex, but I constantly get Slacks that could really distract from a singular task. And when you're not there in person, everybody's tasks to them when they're slacking you are priority number one. So it's very, very easy to get distracted from having that call block. So maybe tell the team, tell your direct managers, look, I'm going to block this out. I will not be on Slack for this. And then if you measure that block as well, then everybody's going to be happy and go, okay, I understand why you do that. That's nice. And finally, silly point, feeling zen. Be relaxed, enjoy the process of calling. You're gonna get, the likelihood is, even with the best tips in the world, somebody's gonna be upset with you. It doesn't matter. The one that picks you back up is when you phone a very friendly CEO. And that will happen the more you call. So yeah. that's from me there on cold calling mentality, checklist, and efficiency.
I think that there were a few more things regarding what can help you get that call answered. And now there is this technology out there, right? So I think especially what happened to me when I'm calling European people, right? My European opportunities, but actually my phone call, it has a Canadian number. And so even though I call them a minute after they email me saying that, yeah, you can call me at any time, they don't answer. So I email them back saying, hi, I just called you, but you didn't answer. And they say, oh, Alex, I had no idea that's you. See, the number matters. So I think if you have an option to kind of have a local dial, does the warm up the situation for you and your team look?
Yeah, I mean, a warm up, I guess. I mean, it's hard remote these days. We're building the outbound team. At the moment, we have mainly incoming calls to us. So we'll get to that, but definitely previously and previous teams, that's vital. I just saw a very funny question. I've just opened this, by the way, Alex. How do you keep energy high if the SDRs are all doing a Zen job?
That's a question for you. You're the SDR manager.
Positive energy, not aggressive. Positive energy and preparation. I think that's. I'll answer that way. Very cool.
Yeah, there are actually a few questions regarding voicemail. So what if we are doing outbound calling? Do you see voicemail effective there? Do we leave voicemail then?
Yeah, so I think on a first call, if they haven't seen anything, they haven't responded, and the tools now, Reply has it where you can see if they've opened the email. I think that's when you put a voicemail in if they've already seen something about you. I've never personally done it on a first cold call, and when I've seen reps do it, I haven't seen it work so well. But definitely in some sort of a cadence to after an email, after a few failed calls, I don't see any harm. But I haven't seen anything in terms of crazy results in leaving voicemails compared to not. That's in my experience now. Yep.
Yeah, I've had some positive results for leaving voicemails, but those were inbound. Somebody who's already signed up. And like I would leave a voicemail and they email me next day or later that day saying, hi, Alex, thanks for leaving the voicemail. I got that. And they actually then give me like the kind of the description of where they're at, what's their situation. So it helped, but really not so much. And we do have at least 3 calls per sequence for our inbound leads. And we would start leaving the voice message at least after the second. So definitely not the first one, too early at that point. Second one, or something like a text message. That's what we do, because quite often, right, people don't answer the call that they don't know. So sometimes this text message following the unanswered call, just kind of short, friendly, stating who you are, what you're called about. That's it. One sentence. It does gets us some replies and then some connected calls as well. Yeah,
that's interesting. Okay, cool. Interesting question just popped in. I think we should cover is gatekeepers. We haven't touched on that. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Matteo. 78% of calls, more senior people require getting past some kind of gatekeeper. Knee-jerk objections. Okay, that's a good question. In terms of a solid answer, I have to say it depends on the size of a company. If you go very enterprise, their job is to put you to the correct department a lot of the time on very big enterprises. That's in my experience, Alex. I'm not sure if you've seen the same, but if you phone let's say a huge retail company like what was a top man when I was calling, I would just say, can I speak to somebody in marketing? And you get through. But yeah, there's definitely some smaller companies now, and it'd be really difficult to get through to that CEO or founder. So in terms of handling that with the gatekeeper, I don't agree with being friends with the gatekeeper, but definitely what I call multi-threading an account. And if you can't get through one, say it's quite important, could I speak to this person about it then? And if that person is going to be too busy, and find that route. In terms of the first thing when you speak to a gatekeeper, just say it's not really a trick, but I used to say the first name of my prospect. So I'd phone reply and go, can I speak to Alex, please? And that tended to go through it, especially companies below 500. You could do that. Eventually, they start questioning you, but Alex who? From what department? By the time you've had that sort of conversation, you're more likely to have that rapport rather than I'm calling. This is Luke from CloudTalk. I go into a sales pitch. I'm calling because we have a software that does this, and I need to speak to. Sorry, that sounds like you're going to be a bit of effort for whoever I put you through to. So you want to try and build that rapport, but not be their best friend either. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a comment about being friendly with the gatekeepers. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's go on to the. I'm wary of time. Do you want to share your screen there, Alex, for the next part?
Yep. We'll cover the multi-channel aspect of it, right? Because these days you can. I think you have to stop sharing, Luke, because it's not allowing me to share now. Thanks.
No worries.
Cool. Okay. Yep. So these days, it's been a while since you had to really go in cold with the phone calls when they don't know who you are and have no idea what you offer, or you don't really have that information on your hands. So that time is gone. And now you have a lot of channels that you can use along with your phone calls that will actually make your phone calls more effective, that will help you establish better connections when you call. And so we'll start with if you have, let's see here. So the most effective way would be actually combining your phone call with other touch points, and those could be always LinkedIn, personalized emails, video emails, maybe even audio messages on your LinkedIn. So I wanted to show you, just waiting for my controls to go up. Sorry. So that I can show you my sample sequence that will already kind of help you warm up the call that when you're making it. Okay, sorry, I'm struggling with my screen. Just 1 second. Awesome. Yeah, now that's good. Yep. So that's what I wanted to show you, right? That let's say you're targeting your cold prospects, and the best way would be to always start with your LinkedIn. And there was a question about earlier also whether you connect with them beforehand or not. Test it out, see how it works. At least the profile view should do the trick, because because the main point of this, right, before you make the call, is to create some sort of name recognition or at least facial recognition when you call. So if there is a profile view or a connect request, that will increase the chance of you establishing maybe a warmer connection on the call that you make. So LinkedIn, super personalized email, with you really knowing who they are, what they do, and why you are the right solution for them, or what you can actually solve for them at this point. Then see, your phone call is number 3 now. So you're not going in completely cold, right? Let's say then you follow up with a few emails, then your second call is also, you're not going in completely cold, along with the text message maybe. I have a connect request here, but like I said, you can always move it up if you see that's important. Something that a lot of SDR teams also use these days would be personalized videos. So you can even send them the video. You have the insight into the opens and views, and if they open it but maybe not watch it, or if you see that they watched it but they don't reply, use that as your opener when you call them, or even use that as a reason to call them beforehand, even if maybe your sequence hasn't reached that part yet. So there's something like audio messaging on your LinkedIn. So record them a personalized message like that. Then when you're calling, they will most likely already know you, right? So there are these things here to help you out. Yeah, for some reason I'm struggling with my Zoom today. I cannot switch in between my tabs, and let me do this again here. And the kind of coming back to the prioritization and how the sales engagement platforms can help you with that. So like, let's see here, what I'm showing you is this is a sequence, right, that I'm running, and these are all of the people that are in my sequence. So before you make a call, just go on, take the advantage of your engagement rates that you already have in front of you, filter out by those views, and start prioritize these calls. First, once again, call the ones that answered or yes or no, whatever, but then start with the ones who are engaged, who maybe these guys see how many times they opened your email. Maybe they just didn't have the chance to reply to you. They got distracted, right? So many things happen, but that call can do the trick, right? Also here, you can see if you called them before, right? That also can help you out to be more prepared. You can see where they're from. So use the information that you have. If you're struggling for personalization, use anything from here that you already have. Okay. Right. Yep.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, something I think that you can also use on
Hmm.
LinkedIn is you can always check out their company, and then you can see if anybody from their company is actually following your company. So that also you can see if they maybe they're already aware who you are, so you can use that, right? Okay.
Nice. Do you find SMS works? I see you have that function. I haven't used that personally.
Yeah, well, like I said, we do that for inbound, and for some leads that works because then it kind of gives them the idea of who we are. And a lot of them, they actually, they never open the email that you send to them, but then they answer the phone or they answer the SMS. So the more channels, the more chance of booking that meeting. And the phone often helps to establish that connection when their email is overflown like yours, right? If you have 20 emails, but you have one call, there's a higher chance you're going to pick up that one call than go through all of those 20 emails if you're busy, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Nice.
Cool. I think also something that I wanted to say earlier, but I didn't get a chance to say, was that kind of build up your confidence. If you're a new BSDR and you're also struggling with how do you personalize, how do you deliver enough value on your cold call to get them to keep talking to you or schedule a meeting with them, talk to your account executive. Don't be afraid to ask them for an example. Go to the demos, like schedule this meeting, then go sit on that meeting, listen to how the AE talks to them, listen to what sort of pain points they discuss, and how the AE handles these objections. Of course, they will be different from the ones that you have on the cold calling, but you can use that value that you get from the demos, you can use them on your cold calls to win them over. And like talking from experience, saying something like, yeah, we actually have teams like yours as our users, and this is how we help them. That's what's actually going to help you win them over when you actually can provide them that you have experience dealing with their particular pain point. And I know it's difficult to build up that confidence when you've never spoken to the team after you've scheduled the call for them. But if you attend some of these demos or attend them regularly, or talk to your AEs afterwards to kind of go analyze the meetings that you booked, how they go, that will help you book better meetings and get them more engaged. And a lot of that information actually that happens during the cold call, if you can also give that to your AE, that will help them on the meeting, because they won't be coming into the meeting blind. They will already be prepared. And like you were saying before, Luke, right? If you have this note here where you can mark with, yeah, they were angry, because very often they will schedule a call with you because you're good at your job, you're pushy, like you kind of disregard their objections that they throw at you. But what's the chance that then they're going to actually show up for the meeting? Maybe they just book it because they want to get off the phone. But then maybe calling them afterwards before the meeting saying, hi, we have a call scheduled, are we still on track? That also can help kind of to decrease those no-show rates. So we're kind of transitioning,
Yeah.
going into
No,
this sales cycle thing as well. So yeah.
no, that's cool. I mean, with the CloudTalk dialer, you have these dispositions, right? You can put an angry face disposition or a smiley face. So you could generally make, this is the angry list. I don't think anybody's going to want to touch the angry list as a cold calling thing, but it might be a good idea for new people to practice on those.
Do you have any sort of trainings with your team, with your SDR team, before they kind of go in there, pick up the phone?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of role plays. And most people who enter the team know that because they have to do them on the interview process a few times. And definitely, I'm a horrible prospect in role plays. for them. So it's always nicer when they finally do get to speak to a prospect. So yeah, that's pretty much every so often a spot check on role plays is good. Yeah, and obviously, I'm a fan of scripts to a degree, but I think once you get more product knowledge, you don't really need them. That's where you start to hone your sales knowledge before becoming an account executive. So that's where I stand there. Yeah. Cool. So guys,
now kind of 10 minutes out, so it's a good time to go into the Q&A.
Yeah, I think we've neglected quite a few questions. So I should go on there. So guys, yeah, ping any questions at either of us, and we'll see if we can.
There was one about how many calls you make a day, was asked earlier. How many did you used to make when you were like calling people twice in a day?
Probably 150 to 200 dials. I don't think that is. I mean, now with GDPR, a lot of data as well is a bit more protected. I don't think that's always a realistic number, and it depends what you sell. So, if you're targeting enterprise, you probably won't get to that number. Especially with the way you showed on the different ways you can outreach now. I wasn't doing that, so I think now up to about 100 max is probably good a day. I know in USA there's always higher call rates, but they do have more numbers and they can, they don't have that GDPR issue as well.
Mm-hmm. I had one about bad reactions, and yeah, that's, I think in sales, I see a question here about bad reactions, and I think everyone in sales has had a bad reaction. It's usually I've had the one where when I call someone, it's my call number 1 in my sequence, and they're like really dismissive of me. And I remember this, of course I remember this. So my next touch point for them was actually contact them on LinkedIn. And so now at this point, I feel like, okay, they're gonna remember that they're not interested. Why do I even talk to them on LinkedIn? And of course, that's my task, so I have to do it. So I message this person on LinkedIn, and guess what? The conversation goes well because they don't remember that they actually dismissed me like 3 days ago via the phone. So whichever your follow-up after a negative reaction like this it is, whether that's a LinkedIn or a follow-up call, just go and make it, because most likely they're not going to remember.
Yeah. I mean, it's the inevitable that you're going to have a bad reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I used to go through as an SDR when I saw that from an email there was a bad reaction or something. I would take that account and apologize on behalf of the company and try and start a conversation. So that actually worked as well to start conversations. Not people forget you. It's not about you personally. It's about just that message in that moment.
And also, here we have a question about what's the best time to call. Maybe it's a good time to show CloudTalk and its feature, very handy feature. Can you show us, Luke?
Yeah, sure. I can give you a quick look at the dialer for sure, and show you. So the best. So you're talking about the functionality of
numbers, showing right? The local time.
Give me one moment.
Alex, from your experience, what is the best time to call?
I asked my SDR team when they call, and they say that they don't really focus on it so much. They call at any time of the day because they do they call both EMEA and US leads. So yeah, they don't see like a big difference there, but definitely I think they do more closer like lunchtime or afternoon, not 8 a.m. US time, no.
So with the dialer, thanks Rima for reminding me there, it's whatever code you're phoning, it will come up directly with that local time. So it makes it a little bit more efficient than going onto a website or checking out you can have it straight from a number. So if you've downloaded a list, let's say from ZoomInfo, whatever code, including in USA, depending on whether it's from Minnesota or from California, it will come up with that local time. So that's pretty useful. I believe so. Measuring that in terms of the call history, we can do that and see most connected calls in a certain time frame and go deeper into that data as well. How many missed calls at certain times. But it really depends, and you have to, this is based on number of calls, but you can split this into territories going into this dashboard. So there's ways of measuring it. Let's say in terms of the best time to call, which I think was the question. I think if you have mobile numbers early as they're getting into the office, especially the higher, the more seniority they have, I've always found that works better if you have the mobile number. The rest of the time, I think we touched on, it depends on the country a little bit. But if you call a prospect or dial 3 times in a day, you're then likely to realize when they like to be called the most. So I would call them morning, midday, and afternoon for every lead that you want to speak to.
Man, there are so many questions here. I'm a bit lost. Somebody was asking for the sequence. So you guys, the sequence was actually just the reply template sequence. So if anybody just wants kind of some best practices on how to use multi-channel, which would be email, LinkedIn, calls, SMS, or even something like WhatsApp in your outreach, we do have a free trial, so you can create a trial, look at all of those template sequences that we have, and even test them out for the 2 weeks. No strings attached. Yeah.
Any tips?
For the personalized videos, I personally use Vidyard, but some of the teams also use Loom. I use Vidyard. It's pretty comfortable for me. Yeah.
Also, a good question about converting from not interested to interested. What will you recommend to do?
So not interested is a very normal objection, which is easy to say. Sort of like no budget, not the time. I see it as the same thing. I think you just need to really get into that, and there's different ways you can do it. There's a great book I think a lot of people read last year with Chris Voss, Splitting the Difference, something like that. And he does a mirroring technique. So if they say not interested, just mirror that back and try and find out why. So not interested, pause again, let them explain themselves. I've seen that work for a few people. Find out, because they genuinely might not be interested as well. So yeah, you can't always just convert, but at least find out some information as to why they're not interested is what I would say. Maybe you haven't touched on the right point. Maybe there's another pain point that they care about.
Yeah, definitely trying to have a conversation, because not interested can mean a lot of things. It can be one that you need to kind of give up and not really waste your time on them. But the reason can be such that it's just like them brushing you off and they might have a need for it. Or even if they're not interested right now, like we said, you can always use this information, put it in your CRM, and use that to personalize your outreach to them in 3 to 6 months. So you can always convert them to interested. So many people switch their providers. Like I see this so much with my prospects. Back in like fall 2020, they would complain to me saying that you guys are stuck in us. We don't like your solution. We're not interested. Now I accidentally see them that they're an active user. So maybe like 4th month after that, they switched and now they're already here. So yeah, the time will definitely help with turning them from not interested to interested.
Cool. Okay. So Nicole, there's a question from Naveen. Is that some of the cold calls I'm scheduled for, our people have been systematically removed from past campaigns due to inactivity? Colours my expectation for outreach negatively. Any tips or thoughts? Be zen, Naveen. But apart from that, if they're removed from inactivity, potentially the campaign at that time just wasn't of interest. So don't worry. You can still refer back to it. You can still refer back to that and say, look, I know we sent something a year ago, this campaign, these emails, because you're on this list, but it didn't seem to create that much interest. Is that correct? Start the conversation from that, whether it's negative or positive. Luca Bontempelli, do you miss cold calling and the adrenaline coming from it? Yes. And a short answer, and I still try and stick my head in when I can on a few cold calls. It is fun, and especially if you take yourself, I think it's easier when you're not an individual contributor. I would definitely say that. I think most people, as soon as they get promoted, not from a business development side where they don't have to cold call, suddenly become better at it, weirdly enough. I wonder why that is, but yeah, definitely miss it. Do you miss it, Alex?
I'm sorry, can you say it again? I was preparing the slide.
Do you miss cold calling? Do you cold call still, or?
I mean, it's still, I think even when you do this often, there's always this little bit of the hesitation that you have to overcome. So once I overcome it, I actually enjoy it. So even if I don't feel up to it, like I would put a smile on my face, I would make the call because I know it's more effective than just email. So, and after I do it, I feel really well about it, and I can make 10 or 20 more. So yeah, just kind of getting back into it can be a bit difficult, but then when you do it, it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We're actually out of time, so I did put up the slide here with our information. Sorry, guys, we didn't really couldn't cover all of the questions, go into as much detail as we could. So we put our information here, so you can reach out to us directly, check out our solutions online as well if you're interested in a calling solution and in the sales engagement platform as well. We will send you the recording and we will send you the deck. So you will also have this information there so you can reach out to us. And I think for Luke, right? Look up his phone number and call him. He's probably not going to open the email.
Exactly. I may change my number if it's too many. Good stuff. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Alex, for inviting me today to reply. So have a great evening.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone.